So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned MIPS and risk. How deeply did you have to understand the lowest level? So, the lowest level of the software and even the hardware with the stuff you were building. Like, what are the layers of the abstractions you had to understand to be successful with all the stuff you're doing with NT and before that with MS-DOS?
Well, about half your day is going to be spent debugging. And most of that time is going to be spent in call stacks that are in pure assembly language because there's no source level debugging.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we're in Visual Studio and you hit a breakpoint and it pops up and there's the source code. You can go look at the source code, but you're looking at the raw assembly dump from the machine at all
So,
times.
even if you're programming in C, the debugging is in assembly.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, man.
So it's a little cumbersome. And better yet, we're doing 4 instruction sets because we're doing Intel, MIPS, Alpha, and PowerPC. So depending on which machine it crashes on, you've got an entirely different instruction set that registers. And so you get reasonably adept at debugging all 4, but I had more experience in MIPS, so MIPS stuff would come my way.
That's a real endurance event. I mean, can you speak to that? The torture there's debugging, especially that kind of debugging, without the tooling associated with it. I mean, that's, programming. Kids these days, programming isn't all about creating beautiful things, right? It's also about fixing things.
Yeah, I would say that 20% of my professional life has been creating and 80% has been debugging and fixing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I got a bit of a reputation as somebody who could fix stuff. And so stuff like that would flow to me. And so I would spend more time doing that. I wasn't renowned as a creative UI genius where I'm flowering all these new ideas. So I got to fix ugly stuff, but you get really good at that. So I don't mind it until it's one of those things where you've been chasing it for so long that you don't know what to do next and you can't understand why it doesn't work or how it ever worked or whatever situation you happen to be in. And, after a day of it, it can get pretty trying.
Yeah, debugging can be real torture. It can be really, really difficult. There's a psychological component, I think, of perseverance.
I think the ones that, take you a day, they resolve one of 2 ways. Either it's like, oh, extra semicolon, and then you finally see it, or it's some horrible manifestation of cross-threaded department nonsense that was really hard. But it can go both ways. I had a bug. It wasn't my bug, actually, but it was a manifestation of a bug in Task Manager, where every now and then it would say greater than 100% total CPU usage. And this looks pretty silly for a task manager. So I had tried to resolve it for a long time, and I'd talked to the kernel guys about my issue, and they were unsympathetic, let's say, because the kernel guys are a special breed, and they weren't interested in my userland problems. It's probably some issue in my code, right? And they're probably right, but it wasn't in this case, and I was sure of it. And so I kept adding asserts all through the code to make sure that the preparatory steps of adding the stuff together were never more than 100, and that the final sum was never more than 100. And finally, it never asserted. But occasionally we would get this bug where people would still see it. And so I finally put my phone number in the assert. And I was like, if you see this message, call Dave PL at 425-836, my phone number. And finally, we did get a catch in the actual stress debugger that I was talking about earlier, where it happened to somebody with a debugger connected. We were able to go through, and it was actually a kernel accounting issue, and it wasn't a task manager issue. So they just fixed it in the kernel once I was able to prove that it was, in fact, the kernel issue. And you'd think we would then remove my phone number, but we just commented it out. So it's shipped, and it's in all the damn source code leaks for NT that are out there. So that's awesome. How I find task manager code is I search for my phone number on Google, and it will reverse find the NT source code.
Can you speak to the assert thing? By the way, I think you tweeted or you said somewhere that if you want to take your asserts really seriously, you add your home phone number in there. Yeah, it's true. It's
a little facetious because it's probably not the smartest thing, but no, you will find out.
But I mean, assert by itself is already a serious thing because it stops at all execution. I mean, this is one of the reasons I really, really love asserts, because they stop everything and force you to take care of the problem.
Yeah, I'm a little religious about my asserts too. I don't assert things that I hope aren't true. I assert things that I know cannot be true. And I think that's really the intent of an assertion, so I'm overstating the obvious. But when it does occur, it's a bug, plain and simple. It's not a warning.
It's kind of fascinating how often it can really help you figure out the problem. Because if you put asserts everywhere, you can get very quickly to the source of the problem.
Yeah, it's not something that I want to suggest you go back and add later. It's something you should do organically as you build your code. So for each function, if you've got assumptions, like I know that this pointer is never null, well, assert that. If you know this count is always less than twice the byte width, assert that. And don't be afraid, because if it asserts, it's doing you a favor. I think some people are afraid. It's like when you turn out of an intersection and you think maybe there's somebody coming and you don't look left.
Yeah.
Or maybe I want to do that, but it's like that. People don't assert because they're afraid they're going to fire. Well, no, you want to know.